Hey, Amy. Hold on.
How are you?
Who are coming in. We are also proceeding solely virtually today by agreement and pursuant to Texas Government Code sections 24.017 and 74.094. Let's see, whom do we have doing this hearing today? Is it okay, if I can get Motorola, if you will mute your device, please. Is this, Ms. Vaselski, is this yours?
Yes,
Okay.
Your Honor.
Very, very good. Thank you. All right. First calling for the mother, Chelsea Knight.
I'm here, Your Honor.
Okay, very good. I have you marked present. And Andrew Snelson.
Here, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. And David Turner.
Here.
All right. Thank you, Vaselski. You may call your first.
Yes, Your Honor. The state calls Miss Carolyn Kamek. And are you familiar with the children in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
And how are you familiar with them?
I've been on the case since it was moved to CVS.
And who are the parents of the children?
Chelsea Knight, David Turner, and Andrew Snelson.
And were the parents given notice to be at this court hearing today?
Yes, ma'am.
And has the department located all of the parents?
Yes, ma'am.
Has the department prepared a service plan for all the parents?
Yes, ma'am.
And have the parents signed that service plan?
Not yet.
Okay, so are we waiting for that to get signed before it's filed with the court?
It's waiting approval from the attorneys.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is the current permanency goal in this case?
Reunification with the concurrent of relative fictive kin adoption.
And in your opinion, will the parents be able to understand what they need to do in this case once the attorneys go over everything with them?
Yes, ma'am.
And they understand that failing to comply with the service plan, once it's accepted, that could result in them losing their parental rights?
I'm going to object to her testifying to what people will understand mentally. It's speculation.
Overruled. You may continue.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. And is there a visitation plan in place yet?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that still being, are we still waiting on the attorneys to approve that as well?
It's basically already been approved. It's that the parents can visit as the caregiver is able.
Okay. So will those be supervised by the caregiver?
Yes, ma'am.
And who will be consenting to medical care and any education decision making at this time?
The caregiver.
And who is the caregiver currently?
Victoria Crouch.
And is the department asking for any child support from the parents at this time?
Not currently.
I pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Moore.
Okay, so Ms. Kamek, what are the services that you have put on your proposed service plan?
We have the general rules, of course, ADAC assessment, parenting, BIP assessment, let's see, work and housing, maintaining work and housing. We had a psychological on there, but we discussed that at the FGC this week. I was asked to replace the BIP and the psychological with couples counseling.
Okay, so hold on a second, because you're listing things that are not actually on the service plan. So what I want to know from you is what is in the service plan that you want to file, not like what did you first want and then what did we negotiate? What's just the bottom line?
Okay, so the general rules, the ADAC with testing, of course, parenting, couples counseling with a psychosocial if it's required prior to counseling, and maintaining work and housing.
Now, as to my client, you know that she was a stay-at-home mom, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you know that she plans to continue to be a stay-at-home wife and mother, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So
that won't be on hers. The housing,
okay.
work won't be on hers.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, when I look at the service plan, you've added a lot of stuff on here for the housing that we didn't agree to. For instance, she has to give you copies of identification, social security numbers, and other information for any potential roommate 48 hours before that person becomes a roommate. We didn't discuss that, did we?
That is standard department requirement because you
Objection,
have to pass the
non-responsive.
background.
Objection, non-responsive.
Sustained.
We did not discuss that being in the plan, did we?
No,
Now, if you were to keep that in the plan, then that makes her ability to comply with the plan dependent on if whoever may be a potential roommate is willing to give her all that information. Is that correct?
yes, ma'am.
And it's not fair for her to have a service plan that her compliance is dependent on other people's actions, is it?
Correct.
So, is the department willing to remove that part of the service plan with the understanding that the children are not in her home right now?
I would have to consult with Christina on that.
Okay, well, is Christina present today to testify?
Ms.
I don't know
Nieto
if she's present or
Nieto
not.
present.
Okay, so you're not able to answer that, but you do agree with me that it's not okay to have her compliance based on someone else doing what y'all want them to do, right?
Correct.
Okay. The drug testing, your general rules say it has to be, they have to test within 4 hours. Are you okay making that like we have in the past where they have to complete their drug testing by the end of testing the day that it's requested?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you do those requests in the morning, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So it'll be up to my client to get to the testing facility before they stop testing that day, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you'll give them notice in the morning, so she'll have plenty of time. Have you reached out to Rhonda Piper?
I have sent the referral and the 2054s over to her.
Okay. Now, after or during our FGC, you said you were going to reach out to the counselor to find out about the psychosocial. So have you reached out to her about that?
Yes, ma'am. I forgot about that. Yes, ma'am, I did. And she was supposed to call me back and she has not.
Okay. So we just don't have an answer on that yet.
Correct.
Now, in this case, how long has it been since the children were removed?
I think they were removed early October, November. I'm not really sure what the removal date was.
Okay. So it's been several months though, correct?
It's been a couple. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. My client has not given you a positive urinalysis, has she?
No, ma'am.
And for the hair follicles that you've sent her for, her levels are continually going down. Is that correct?
She's done 2 hair and yes, they were, the second one was lower.
And the department actually tested the youngest child in this case. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And that test for him was a
I
negative,
have an
correct?
objection to hearsay. I haven't been provided that from the department.
Sustained.
Okay. Without telling me the results of the test, did the department have any concerns about his drug test?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Have you been to their home to visit?
Yes, ma'am.
How many times?
Just once.
Did you have any issues with the home?
I didn't look around the entire home. There were dogs in the home and it did smell like dog.
Okay. Well, when you have
But
dogs in the house, it smells like dogs, right?
Overall, the home was clean.
Okay. So would you have concerns if there were to be visits with the children and the children were to be in the home with the parents?
Unmonitored?
I'm just saying in general, even if they were monitored, would you be okay with the kids being in the home with mom?
You're going to object to the line of questioning. This is a status hearing, and none of us got
Okay.
notice.
Sustained.
You testified about visitation earlier. What is it that the department is wanting to see before the department is willing to agree to expand the visitation a little bit?
We would like to see compliance with the family plan, longer sobriety, and demonstration of parenting skills.
Okay, so how long of sobriety is the department looking for?
I don't know what we normally request for unmonitored visits, if that's what you're asking.
And how is she going to demonstrate her parenting skills?
through
So
her
my client
visits with her
knows.
children, ma'am,
Just so my client knows what it is that she needs to do.
through her visits with the children.
But those are being supervised by her family, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So
I have
whether or not-
observed one visit, and she was good with the Jackson. But I'm relying on the caregiver to let me know how the visits are going.
Okay, so if you hear from the caregiver that there's any concern about a visit, are you willing to send me that information in an email?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then that way you and I can talk to my client to make sure that she understands if there are issues and what needs to be corrected. Are you fine with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is there anything we left off of the plan? I think we got it all.
The sobriety, we prefer to see 6 months before we agree to the unmonitored. And
Where did you get that information?
from Ms. Nieto. And then
Like you
of course,
just got it. Wait, hold on. You just got that right now?
yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Did you text her and ask her?
No, ma'am.
So she just sent you that for no reason?
She's aware of the hearing. She's on the hearing.
Oh, she's in the hearing. Okay, I'm sorry. I
Yes,
didn't know
ma'am.
that she was in it. I thought she wasn't.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll pass the witness.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Crocker.
With respect to Mr. Snelson, is his family plan of service nearly tailored to the needs to address the reason the children were removed?
Yes, sir. I believe so.
Okay, and were we able to get the psychosocial element approved?
Yes, sir. I took it off and replaced it with the couples counseling with the requirement of psychosocial only if it's required for the counseling.
And other than the general requirements set forth by the departments, the specifics is what we had negotiated the other day, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so anything that would be in addition to the specifics that were negotiated would have been the general rules.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Visitation for Mr. Snelson, is the same as that of the mother,
Yes, sir.
as well as the drug testing provisions, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. I pass the witness.
All right, thank you, Ms. McPherson.
Would be helpful if I unmuted myself, Your Honor. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Ms. Kamick, my client is David Turner, and he wasn't the reason for the removal of the children, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and so we came up with a family plan to address any type of concern so that he can try to have reunification with his daughter, correct? Because he's the father of only the oldest child in this case.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and in going through this, you're asking him to do a parenting class, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, if he hasn't had any visits with his daughter, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I don't see it on here at all because we had discussed family counseling. I don't see that on here at all on his family plan of service.
Okay, I missed that on my notes when I was going over it. I can add that in.
Because he's never going to be able to demonstrate if he doesn't have any potential visits, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then, I kind of have the same thing about the background information. But that background information would be if he was to ever have, could it be narrowly tailored to if he was ever to have Kelly returned? That he would need to provide that background information.
Yes, ma'am. We request that so that we can do background checks on anyone moving into the home.
And then on here, I'm just confused. Okay, so is Miss Kelsey Lewis, is that going to be his caseworker? Because that's a resource name that's throughout his family plan of service.
Yes, ma'am. She's taking over probably this week.
Okay. And so that resource phone number that's on the family plan of service, that's hers?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I just
And
wanted
what
him,
is, Ms. McPherson, what is that name again, please?
Kelsey Lewis. And it appears she's in the hearing, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
And can he also have the end until the end of the day to submit drug testing? I'm not sure he always has transportation.
Yes, ma'am.
So that'll have to be changed under the random drug testing, under the general rules and under the same provision, correct?
Yes, ma'am. I can change that.
Okay.
I don't know if I have authority to change it under the general rules, but I can change it under the requirements.
Well, it doesn't make sense to have it under one. Which one is he? Because he could violate the general rules if he doesn't go within 4 hours, and he could violate the other one. I think it needs to be changed in both.
I understand. Yes, ma'am.
And then you have it, he'll attend his parent-child visits, but we've addressed that where we needed to add the family counseling in there. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And an ADAC assessment. Now, I don't understand, you have in here about cognitive abilities. There's nothing requirement, so I don't know why that's in there. You don't have any kind of requirement in there, so can that just be taken off? I mean, I don't understand why that's in there.
I don't know if I don't think I can take it off, but let me look at his plan.
Can I ask, have these plans been filed at all?
I am waiting on Miss Nieto to sign it so that I can file it.
Okay. Because I didn't think I saw it. I was just wondering.
Let's,
Yeah, I have them ready. It's just a matter of getting that signature.
Do you see what I'm talking about? It just says no requirements.
Yes, ma'am. I put on there that if he feels he needs some support for cognitive health, that he can contact his caseworker for resources.
So it's not a part of his family plan of service. There's nothing he needs to do.
It's not a requirement, no, ma'am.
And then you have it that, you know, he's to comply and stay current with his mental health, correct? Through the Burke Center?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and to sign a release of information, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Because it's your understanding that he's seeing it, his work, you know, he's going in and seeing everybody. We just need to have the documentation and to be able to make sure he's doing his medication correctly, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, you have on the family plan of service the psychological evaluation. You know, I'm objecting to the psychological evaluation.
Yes, ma'am.
If he's compliant with his mental health and he is not the reason for the removal, seems to me it's a fishing expedition to have a psychological for a non-offending parent in this case. Is that something that what's your basis? What is that narrowly tailored to help in this case for having the psychological on there when he's already maintaining his mental health?
I talked to my supervisor about it and she stated,
Objection to the hearsay.
Well, counsel asked her.
Overruled.
But what is your basis for it?
if it's been more than 1 year, we just need to make sure that everything is current and that he is receiving the proper care that he needs.
If he goes, if he can prove he goes all the time to his therapist and his doctors and he's compliant, do you understand that why would there be a need if it's not even, if he's current and he's always going? What would be the basis for that?
For documentation purposes.
Is it just let me ask you in a better way. Is it just a department's policy to require one every year if it's over a year old?
I don't know what the department's requirement is on that.
Okay. And again, you have
Ms. McPherson, what are your clients' diagnoses or diagnosis?
bipolar, Your Honor, and schizophrenia, and he's being seen through the Burke Center on a monthly basis.
And how long has he been seeing them?
Oh, I'd have to get testimony from him, but at least since probably 2015 or even before that.
So
Right.
it is a department.
Wait a minute. What is more than a year old? A psychiatric evaluation or a psychological evaluation?
Psychological is what I was requesting.
I know that's what you were requesting, but you mentioned there being one that's more than a year old. Is it a psychological you're contending is more than a year old, or a psychiatric it's more than a year old?
Psychological.
Okay. All right,
But-
and he's seeing a psychiatrist. Ms. McPherson, is that correct? And I think you also mentioned therapy.
Correct, and he could better explain that. He's being seen through the Burke Center, Your Honor, and it's every month. And then I was going to ask Ms. Kamek, since we just got in this case and we just had the family group conference, you're not really aware of when his last psychological or psychiatric evaluation is, correct?
Correct. Yes, ma'am. I was saying that if it's more than a year old, we need it, and it is in policy.
But that's not what the family plan of service says. It's on there as a requirement regardless of the age. Isn't that correct?
Yes, ma'am. I can adjust that.
Okay, Ms. Kamek, I don't want you to be receiving any assistance during your testimony. I don't want people feeding policy to you. If you don't know, you don't know. It's okay. Just say that.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's pick up the pace, please.
Okay, sorry. And then intimate partner violence, you have that on there. That again, you put it in there, but there's no requirements.
Because he's not currently in a relationship and that there's no history of domestic violence, there are no requirements on that.
And that basically, except for the general rules, that is all that you have on there on his family plan of service, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you will add family counseling,
Add what? Counseling? Yes, ma'am.
the family counseling.
Yes, ma'am.
And Your Honor, I'll pass her as a witness.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hollier.
Thank you. Carolyn, the children are doing well, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Are all of the educational needs being met through the new school district? To
I
your
believe
knowledge?
so. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. I think so.
No concerns or needs from the placement with regard to the kiddos?
No, ma'am.
Any referral for cans or therapy for either?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so not even for the oldest?
She, the caregiver is setting up a CANS assessment for her
Okay.
through Dr. Hubel. So that will be done, but that's not really a referral that we do. It's just something that we ask. It's a requirement of the
Placement.
caregiver to have that done for any child over 3.
Okay, that's why I was asking. So that you've communicated that to the Crouches, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You observed a visit with I guess Mr. Snelson and Miss Knight, or
Yep.
just one of them,
Both of them were there with Jackson.
and everything went well,
Yes, ma'am.
and they're willing to go to placement. Placement's willing to have them visit.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so it makes it a little bit difficult for me to ask about the family plan because I haven't seen them. It's my I'm reading the notes of the PC. It's my understanding that the parents are objecting to any BIP assessment, psychological, psychosocial. They disagree to do any of that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And why is that?
They felt like
Objection, hearsay. My
The
clients did
parties-
not speak to her about this at that FGC.
Overruled if the parents told her, or if she heard them say.
the parents did not, the attorneys did.
All right, so sustained.
Okay, so normally in a CPS case where there's the concerns that they are, is at least a psychosocial requested.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and there was also allegations of domestic violence. So would usually a BIP assessment be requested?
Yes, ma'am.
And the department is backing down and not insisting on requesting that in this case?
I was told that they were not necessary. That
By who? The department or the parents' lawyers?
the attorneys.
So that's my question, Ms. Kamaker. Is the department bowing down to the attorney's objections when normally allegations are like this, those assessments are done?
Yes, ma'am.
So y'all are bowing down to that? Okay, that's good to know.
Well,
All right, so is
not-
it, I'm sorry?
it's not a preference, but I didn't have my supervisor present for that, so.
Okay. Well, I'm making that request regardless. Now with regard to, so is it my understanding the only thing on these family plans of service are these parents are going to do ADAC assessments and that's it? That's all that is required for them besides the general rules and drug testing
Parenting,
and the parenting? That's
yes,
it?
ma'am.
Okay. I will ask the witness.
All right, thank you. Back to you, Ms. Vaselski.
Ms. Kamick, do you feel that a bit assessment is needed in this case?
Objection asked and answered.
Overruled. You may answer.
There were allegations in the affidavit.
Objection hearsay.
Yes, ma'am. I do.
Sustained.
And Your Honor, it's not hearsay if the mother testified to it or made a statement as to that fact.
Was it the mother making the allegations, Ms. Kemmett?
No, she responded to the allegations.
Well, the question was, do you believe that the BIP assessment is necessary? Let's start with the mother.
Yes, ma'am, sir.
Why?
Because of the allegations in the affidavit.
Allegations by whom?
The children have witnessed.
Objection hearsay, also a misstatement of what's in the affidavit.
Now to Mr. Snelson, do you believe that his service plan should include, in order to be narrowly tailored, a BIP assessment?
Yes, sir.
Why?
The affidavit.
Same answer?
Yes, sir.
Right. What about Mr. Turner?
No, sir.
And you're wanting a psychological for Mr. Turner?
Yes, sir.
All right. Ms. Vaselski, you may continue.
Ms. Kamick, since talking to the defense attorneys in this case, is there anything else that you feel needs to be on the service plan that isn't on it at this current moment?
I feel like at least the psychosocial minimum.
Minimum, is that it? Have you said minimum?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you. And so, Ms. Kemak, you believe that in reference to the mother and Mr. Snelson's service plans, not Mr. Turner's?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from anyone for Ms. Kamak?
Yes. Ms. Kamak, first I want to talk about Kelly's father's service plan. You said you're going to add family counseling. Are you just going to add that and require that this child do that even if she doesn't want to?
Objection speculation, if she wants to or not.
Overruled.
I think that should be something that Kelly should actually be involved with as far as whether or not she wants to do that.
Okay, so are you going to add that as a requirement or not?
I'll have to consult with Christina on that.
Okay.
I didn't think
So-
about that, but yes, ma'am.
It sounds to me like the department's not ready to have a status hearing. Is that the case?
Ma'am,
Is the department actually ready to have this status hearing? Then the reason I'm asking is because it seems like you have a lot of things you need to staff with your supervisor. You made
Objection argumentative, Your Honor.
Sustained.
is the department ready to have?
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
I am having flashbacks to family group conferences myself right now. I don't want an encore of it. A lot of these things should have been settled down or at least narrowed down to argue over specific things. I'll tell you now that I'm not going to make Kelly go to counseling unless she wants to and her counselor recommends that.
Okay. I can move on from that if that's the case, Judge.
And I will also tell you that I'm going to order Mr. Turner to submit to a psychological evaluation in order for this to be narrowly tailored. I'm also going to include on Mr. Snelson and Ms. Knight's service plans, BIP assessments, and psychosocials in order for them to be narrowly tailored. I'm going to, of course, accept EXCEPT, any and all hearsay on everybody's plans, right? Any information about roommates is going to be contingent upon whether the department is poised to place a child with that parent. Now, what else were we quibbling over?
Well, Judge, I would still like to put on some evidence on the BIP before the court makes a decision on whether or not it's ordered, to be able to at least cross the witness on it.
Let's get to that. I'm eager to get to that. So what else do we need to hear from Ms. Kamak?
So, Ms. Kamak, have you talked to my client about allegations of domestic violence?
No, ma'am.
Didn't you go to my client's home and speak to her?
Yes, ma'am.
And you didn't bring that up?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So, Judge, I'm just going to have to call my client at this point.
I would think so, and we will hopefully get to that perhaps right now. Any other questions of Ms. Kamak? Let me see if Ms. Veselski has any other witnesses.
Not at this time, Your Honor.
Whatever the family plans of service turn out to be in just a few moments, I'm going to order the department to the supervisor to sign them and to e-file them forthwith. So, Ms. Veselski, no other witnesses, did you say?
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Ms. Moore?
I'll call my client, Judge.
And you know I don't need much. I mean, I need whatever's there, but we'll pick up the pace.
Miss Knight, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
If I could ask her to turn on her video, please, Your Honor.
If you will, Ms. Knight, if you'll start your.
Sorry, I was trying to get to that button. There we go.
There we go. There we go. Thank you.
Okay.
And you were sworn, yes.
I'm sorry, sir.
You were sworn in, yes, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm sorry, Ms. Moore. Now you may continue.
Okay. Miss Knight,
Yes, ma'am.
is there an ongoing pattern of domestic violence in your relationship with Mr. Snelson?
No, ma'am.
Was there an incident about a year ago where someone got pushed?
I'm going to object to her leading the witness.
It was closer to 2 years ago. ma'am.
Wait, hold on. I didn't hear if the judge made a ruling.
Ms. Moore?
I didn't hear you, Judge.
Ms. Moore, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Technical difficulties. The last thing I heard was you saying, Ms. Knight, is there an ongoing pattern? And then you all froze on my end. So
Okay, I can start over.
my apologies. Thank you.
Okay, Miss Knight, is there a pattern of domestic violence in your relationship with Mr. Snelson?
No, ma'am.
Do you guys have arguments like regular couples do?
Of course.
Do you lay hands on each other?
No, ma'am.
Has anybody ever laid a hand on each other?
About 2 years ago.
Okay, 2 years
Pushed me.
ago,
That was it. Mhm.
who put their hands on who?
He pushed me.
Okay. Has he ever slapped you?
One time, yes, ma'am. Again,
Okay,
about 2 years ago.
Prior to 2 years ago, was there domestic violence?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Have you ever shot a gun at the ground when you were mad at Mr. Snelson?
Oh, no, ma'am.
Okay.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
My apologies again. The last thing I heard was, has he ever slapped you prior to, and that's the last I heard.
Okay. Has he ever slapped you or been physical with you prior to those incidents that you talked about 2 years ago?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Have you ever used a gun when you were angry at him?
No, ma'am.
Was there an incident where a gun was used?
Yes, ma'am, there was.
When was that?
That was again almost 2 years, 2 years ago, when somebody was in my home threatening me.
Was that him?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Was it your mother?
No, ma'am.
Was it anybody that you're related to?
I was not related to this person. No.
Okay. Did you believe at that time that you needed to use the gun to protect yourself?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You never actually shot anyone, did you?
No.
Did either of your children witness that incident?
No, ma'am. They were not home.
Where were they?
Kelly was at school, and I believe Jackson was with Shauna.
Were there any police reports or anything made about that?
No, ma'am. None at all.
Do you, so the only time how long have you been with Mr. Snelson?
Since 2017.
Okay. And so for all of those years, is it your testimony, the only time that anything's ever been physical was one time about 2 years ago where he slapped you and where he pushed you?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you believe that you guys need to do an intensive domestic violence program like Batter's intervention?
No, ma'am.
Do you believe that you would benefit from couples counseling?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you ask this court to order that you guys do couples counseling instead of Batter's intervention?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you want to do that couples counseling in addition to individual counseling?
No, the couples counseling, I think, would be just fine.
Okay, so do you feel like if you were in front of a counselor and he was sitting there, that you would be able to speak openly with the counselor and discuss even issues that you have on your own?
Objection, leading, Your Honor.
Objection, Your Honor. I don't think that she gets to make the choice whether a counselor wants to see her singly before she does a couples.
Well, that's not a legal objection.
Sustained as to leading.
Do you believe that you would feel comfortable speaking about everything to a counselor if he's in the room?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. If at any point you felt like you couldn't speak openly, would you be willing to voice that?
Yes.
Okay. I'll pass the witness.
All right, thank you. Any questions of the mother, Mr. Crocker?
Oh, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. McPherson?
Not of this client, Your Honor.
Thank you.
And this witness, sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Hollier.
Yes, Ms. Knight, you admitted that you and Mr. Snelson have had a rocky relationship to the point where police have been called to your home. True?
That was 2 years ago
Pass the witness.
when he pushed me.
Pass the witness.
All right, thank you. Ms. Vaselski?
Miss Knight, you stated that Mr. Snelson had slapped and pushed you. Was this on the same occasion or were these two separate occasions?
The same occasion.
This was the same occasion?
Yes, ma'am.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. And you, Ms. Knight, the incident involving the gun and an unrelated person, I heard you say 2 years or a year ago. When did that happen?
I was, it had been a year ago. Jackson was just born.
Did you say it had to be a year ago or it hadn't been a year?
It had been a year ago.
Okay. All right, back to you, Ms. Moore.
I don't have any other questions, Judge. Well, let me ask you this. Have you been going to your drug testing like you're supposed to?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Have you started your parenting class?
Yes, ma'am.
How many classes do you have left?
I have 10.
Okay. How many have you done?
2.
All right. How often are those?
Once a week on Sundays.
Okay. All right. Pass witness.
All right, thank you. Any other witnesses, Ms. Moore?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Crocker, you may call your first, if any.
Your Honor, I'll call Mr. Snelson briefly.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Snelson, were you able to hear Mrs. Knight's testimony?
Yes, sir.
Would you agree with her? There was only been one isolated incident that she described of family violence.
Yes, sir.
Okay. would you prefer the couples counseling other than some type of violence oriented counseling?
I'm fine with couples counseling, yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Tell the court any psychiatric history that you have.
I don't have any.
Okay, never been diagnosed, not currently under any medications.
No, sir.
Okay, never been an issue in your life, correct?
No, sir.
Okay,
No, there hasn't.
I understand your response. I pass the
Yes,
witness, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Any questions of Mr. Snelson? Ms. Hollier, any?
Yes, I do. Mr. Snelson, when you slapped her and the police got called, you had to leave for the night at the home, correct?
Yes, ma'am. I voluntarily left.
Okay, and when asked if you hit her and you stated that it's equal between y'all, so y'all put hands on each other, correct?
No, ma'am. Not really.
Not really, or how
Do you want me to explain or no?
Yes, what do you mean by
Okay,
that?
then let me explain. All right. So we had been arguing for a couple of days, and I was trying to leave. She kept getting in my way, and I had pushed her out of my way, and she continued to get in my way, and I lost my temper and I smacked her. That's what happened.
Okay. And with regard to any mental health concerns, isn't it true that you have suffered from depression when your father passed away?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you have had some mental health diagnosis. Or
No, I
issues.
mean, I haven't been to no kind of counselor, if that's what you're asking, but yes,
But
ma'am, my father's passing has been very hard on me. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you. I'll pass the witness.
All right, thank you. Ms. Vaselki.
Just one quick question, Your Honor. Mr. Snelson, slapping and pushing is considered domestic violence, correct?
I believe so. I'm not an officer, but I think so.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Ms. Moore.
No questions.
All right, thank you. Back to you, Mr. Crocker.
Your Honor, I have no further questions and no further witnesses.
All right, thank you. Ms. McPherson, you may call your first.
Yes, Mr. Turner. You may have to,
Yes,
there
ma'am.
you go. Are you able to put on your video? I know you had issues with your phone. Are you able to put on
No,
your video?
ma'am. No, ma'am. My video camera's messed up on my phone. I'm waiting on my new phone to be shipped to me.
Okay. But you can hear me
I
okay?
can hear you clearly. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we kind of went over the family plan already, housing. You're on disability, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you've been on disability for quite a while?
Yes, ma'am.
Since when did you get on disability?
I think beginning of 2015.
Okay, and you heard that the judge is likely to he's already ordered the psychological. Have you had a psychological within the last month or so? I mean, within the last year or so?
Last time I had a psychological was about almost a year ago, 2 years ago, at the most. But
Okay.
I see a psychiatrist once a month, and I go every 2 months, every 3 months to see my doctor and get my prescription. And
And that's it? Okay,
I'm pretty much
Go
on
ahead.
top of that.
okay. Do you see a psychologist at all?
A psychologist, I start seeing one on the 31st of this month.
A psychologist?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because there's different types of doctors, so I didn't know what,
You
I
got
don't know if you're
You got a
aware.
psychologist you got a psychiatrist and a psychologist and a therapist. They're all three different.
Okay, so you see your psychiatrist about once a month. Who do you see for your medications?
My medication, I see my doctor,
Your primary care doctor or?
the Berg Center's doctor.
Okay. And then do you see a therapist?
I see a therapist once every maybe 2 months, 2 to 3
Okay.
months. But I talk to her once maybe twice a month or every now and then.
Okay. And you've been taking your medications as prescribed, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you understand that the court and the department wants you to take a psychological exam. If there's proof that you have taken one within the last year, would you like that to be ordered, that if you've had one within the past year, that not order one until, that not order,
Yes,
that's psychological.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is there anything else on this family plan of service? You have to maintain contact. And you have to have, a stable house for her to return to. And if you ever want her returned home to, you kind of have to make sure that anybody you're living with, they have all the background information to do like a background check.
Yes, ma'am.
I know that it's on here visits with your daughter, and that's actually what you really, really want. And you're willing to do the family counseling so that, you can rebuild that relationship, but you also understand she may not want to do that yet.
Yes, ma'am.
And the judge isn't going to order her to go do something she's not comfortable doing yet.
Yes, ma'am.
But you're hopeful that will happen, correct?
Correct.
And that we've got it where if they ask you to do a drug test in the morning, you have until the end of the business day. But make sure wherever they send you, when that cutoff is, okay? Because if you don't go, it's a positive test.
Yes, ma'am.
And then parenting classes. And on your family plan of service, there's it's listed a Jamie Essex and her phone number. So you can get that set up, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
And to do an ADAC assessment, and that's also on there with a phone number.
Okay.
And you know what an ADAC assessment is? It's an alcohol and drug assessment. And they'll
Yes,
make
ma'am.
recommendations of what they would like you to do, okay? Does
Yes,
that
ma'am.
make sense to you? And do you think that do you need help with any of your services?
No, ma'am. Not that I know of.
Okay, do you have transportation to be able to get to them if they're in person or would you need?
Right now, I'm working on my vehicle. I'm trying to get my vehicle running.
So you don't have a vehicle?
Not right this second. Yes, ma'am. Not right this second. But if I got to find a ride, I can find a ride.
Okay, well, you also know that they're very short staffed. And if you needed transportation, you'd have to let them know well in advance, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
If anything is available virtual, would that be helpful?
Yes, ma'am.
Once you get your phone?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any other, so do you think you understand this plan and that you just really want to starting to have visits with your daughter, don't you?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I'll pass you as a witness.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hollier.
I don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Vaselsky.
No questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Moore.
No questions.
All right, thank you. Any other witnesses? Ms. McPherson.
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hollier, you may call your first.
I'll call Miss Stanley. Miss
All right.
Stanley,
Mhm.
thank you. State your name for the record.
Dorothy Stanley.
And do you have a recommendation for the court today?
Yes, I'm in agreement with the current placement of the children and all the changes that the judge would like to see.
Included in the family plan of service?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you think that those things are narrowly tailored for the concerns on why the department got involved?
I do.
Thank you. I'll pass the witness.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Stanley, do you recommend that the mother and Mr. Snelson be ordered to submit to BIP assessments?
Yes, Your Honor.
And if they were not on their service plans, would their service plans be narrowly tailored without them?
No.
Okay. All right, thank you. Ms. Vaselsky?
I have no questions for Ms. Stanley, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from anyone for Ms. Stanley?
I
Okay.
don't have any further witnesses, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Can some one remind me or educate me? Have you ever seen a psychosocial recommend a BIP assessment?
I don't think so. But I think that could be part of, if they're willing, if the court's going to order a psychosocial, as long as the person doing it has knowledge of the facts, they could weigh in on that.
All right, anything else from anyone else? All right, the court is going to order that Ms. Knight and Mr. Snelson's family plans of service include a BIP assessment, couples counseling with a domestic violence, also individual counseling. I am going to include on their service plans psychosocials. Again, I am going to include a psychological on Mr. Turner's family plan of service. And again, regarding any visits with Kelly, any family counseling with Kelly, it will need to be recommended by Kelly's therapist and by Kelly's agreement. All right. So with that, the court finds that the plans are narrowly tailored, all three. Again, the department is ordered to, the supervisor's ordered to send those, e-file those forthwith. And again, the plans exclude all, any and all hearsay. Mom and dads, remember that if at the end of this case you're not willing and able to provide a safe environment for your child or children, your parental rights may be further restricted or even terminated permanently. I feel that you all understand this. It seems to me that none of you wants it to happen, so work your services and demonstrate, and let's achieve the department's primary goal, which I'm sure you share, sooner rather than later. So don't waste any time. Do your services. Demonstrate to the department and to all of us that you can provide a safe environment for your children. Now, since your respective plans become orders of the court, should you not comply with those as a court order, the department could use that as a ground in the future to seek the termination of your parental rights. So don't let the case go there in that direction. Department is continued as the temporary managing conservator. Placement approved to continue. I will sign an order to that effect. Dismissal date is November the 18th, 2024. Our next hearing is for an initial permanency on May the 7th at 9 a.m. Final trial October the 1st at 1:30. Of course, there'll be a permanency between those two hearings. So with that, anything else from anyone else?
Yes, Judge. Can you repeat what you were saying about the roommates and the modification on the service plan? And then also, I was going to ask if you approved the change that the drug testing be by the end of the day
Yes,
requested.
Yes to the drug testing question. And the qualifier regarding providing any would-be roommate their contact information, their information, it would only be in the instance where that person may come in contact with a child by way of expanded visits, unsupervised visits in the future, or if the department is poised to place the child with that parent under the same roof as that roommate or what have you.
Thank you, Judge.
So you might be able to say that in 3 words.
Who wants to let the judge know we're back?
Surely he knows.
That was your job since you asked us to leave. Judge is
So
done.
where did Judge go?
He's done with all of us today,
Probably.
and he is logged off.
It's your fault, Lori.
It usually is. I'm used to it.
Well, he's back, so don't say anything.
Thanks.
I already finished the hearing. For a motion for placement with the intervenor by the intervenor. Is there anyone who is not ready? Okay. Now, is this agreed or contested?
It is agreed, Your Honor.
Okay, well, who wants to announce the agreement? Then that was time well spent.
It's my motion. I'll announce it. It's rather short and sweet.
Okay.
The children will be placed with the intervenor and her husband no later than this upcoming Friday.
All right, and Ms. Walker, is that the department's agreement? And do you believe that's in the best interest of the children?
Yes, Your Honor, that is the department's agreement. The department did have some concerns, but I believe there may be a doctor's letter that's been provided and the department is in agreement.
Okay, and Ms. Moore, what about you and your client?
My client is in agreement with the children going to the paternal grandmother. She simply just does not want her visits to be taken away.
Okay, and I've not heard anything about restricting or expanding, for that matter, any visits. And so let me call, is Chastity Eves present? Right, the court will note Colby Eves' presence and also the intervenor. Okay, and Mr. Butler, I assume that your client is in agreement with this?
Your Honor, I believe so. From the last I spoke with him, he certainly was.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Ms. McPherson and Ms. Stanley.
Yes, Your Honor, the ad litem is in agreement with this. The only thing and why we're waiting until no later than Friday is for the children to finish, for one child to finish up with her preschool, and for things to be kind of gathered together. There's some issues with the foster family itself. And so maybe a little bit more time, and for A to kind of say her goodbyes and things like that to her preschool students.
Okay.
And I'll let Miss Stanley finish up.
Okay.
And the children have a relationship. They've developed, I mean, they had a relationship, but they've kind of established the relationship. The children are familiar with the grandmother, and some of the physical limitations, the children are older. They can do some things on their own. We'll always, and of course, we're going to be monitoring, Your Honor, the placement. So
now, will the grandmother under this agreement be responsible for any transportations or facilitation of visits? And she's willing.
She would be willing to do anything, although we have not discussed that, Your Honor.
Okay, all right, but she would stand willing and able to do that if need be.
If called upon, yes, Your Honor.
Okay, all right, but she won't be supervising the mother's visits, correct?
I don't think so.
Okay, all right. Okay, Ms. Hollier, you were opining earlier, but you're not on the case. I thought you were on the case. Okay, all right. So, if
Miss Stanley, did you have anything that you needed to add?
yes,
The guardian ad litem is in agreement, and the attorney ad litem has stated all the concerns.
okay. All right. Well, the court will abide by this agreement, find it's in the best interest of the children, and that is that the children come to be placed with the intervenor. Again, the court finds this is in the best interest of both children. All visitation schedules shall remain in effect, and any and all other temporary orders. All right, remember, Mom and Dad, that if at the end of this case you're not willing and able to provide a safe environment for your child, your parental rights could be further restricted or even terminated permanently. So keep working your services. We are not back in here until March the 5th. It's not too far off, but that is for a final trial, March the 5th at 1:30. And our dismissal date is March the 11th, 2020. And Ms. McPherson, this is your motion for visitation, is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor. It's basically a motion to clarify what the visits are, to address any missed visits, and
Okay.
the plan going forward.
Do these involve the child JF?
Only as to sibling visits, Your Honor.
Okay,
Well, there was a sibling visit with John and Micah that were always going forward, I thought. Not
Okay.
Krista and John.
okay. Well, one of the reasons I asked is because I believe Mr. McCatherine represents him.
And we said he wasn't involved, so I'll just kind of address it. I'll keep John out of this, Your Honor, as much as possible since he's done. I'll keep
Okay.
that part. Okay.
All right. So,
Well, and Your Honor, I'm just a little
Yes.
confused because we have a mediation set with regard to Micah Friday, and we're in the middle of a termination trial as to Krista. So are we going to have a long blown out on visits before in the middle of all that?
I think I might be able to answer that question. We're not.
Thank you.
We're gonna. But apparently, somewhere along the line, I was not clear. There needs to be a clarification. So.
Well, Your Honor, there was some canceled visits. And from what,
For whom, and by whom?
okay, so well, some of them, let me get back here.
So this is cause number the court will note that the mother, Ruth Fauver, is present. The court will further note that the father, David Battle, is present.
And a lot of these will involve Miss Krista, I believe. And if I'm wrong, I'll have my client here to verify.
Okay. So have you have you tried to talk to the department about making up visits?
I've sent out emails, Your Honor, and I believe even that I tried to not even have this hearing today, trying to clarify everything with everybody. And even the department, they need some clarification on what the visits are to be. And so there was a lot of confusion, Your Honor, and we tried working it out without having to get the court's intervention, and apologize we're here. But
okay. So give me the dates of the ostensible missed visits.
October 7th, 2023 was supposed to be an in-person visit. There was some car trouble. And 15 minutes out from the visit, it got notified. November 14th, 2023 was a Zoom. She was in November 17th, 2023 Zoom. And that was a hospital visit. Apparently the child was in foster care and in the hospital. December.
What was the reason for the 11/14 Zoom visit that was missed?
Child was in foster home, was in the hospital. And so was the November 17th, I believe, was the same reason.
Okay, all right.
And then December 3rd was supposed to be an in-person, and the caseworker said she had to move a kid that was coming off a child watch. And then January 12th and I believe January 16th, 2024 were both Zoom, and they were canceled. There was some confusion because I believe, I don't know if the foster mother was supposed to be supervising these visits, which is not policy for a foster parent to visit. So those were canceled due to the caseworker and somehow needing a court order. And so, and it's just, then also there was some visits as of August 16th for some sibling visits that, and this might be something, and I'm just sorry if I'll have all it back, but remember August 16th, I was not all the way here yet. When they moved Krista out of the grandparents' home into the foster home in Houston, apparently Krista and Micah haven't had any Zoom meetings since then. And I'm just, if there has been, I apologize, but if there haven't, that's also a sibling visit, Your Honor. That doesn't involve the children. So I'm just trying to clarify and maybe go, marching orders going forward, and maybe someone can testify if those visits have been made up. What's the plan going forward? So.
Yeah, and I can call the caseworker to maybe clarify from the department's end what has happened.
Okay. That will be fine. Let me ask you, Ms. McPherson, the December visit I missed, I missed that date.
December,
When was that in person to take place? You won't, well, I think you stated the date. I just didn't write it down. I wrote the month down. There was only
12/3, December
12/3.
3rd. The caseworker had to move a kid from
Have moved
Seawalk.
it from
Right.
Seawalk. No.
it was
Okay.
supposed to be an in-person, correct?
All right. And the first one was October the 10th.
October the 7th.
Okay. October the 7th. And anything earlier that had to do with sibling visits between, or virtual sibling visits between Krista and Micah. Yeah.
Correct. Right.
Okay. So,
So we're not going to address the sibling visits because that would be more of a
No.
thing that I would bring, not the, okay.
yeah, and yes.
Okay.
Well, perhaps you can tell me this. Have any sibling visits, virtual or otherwise, occurred since August 16th? Maybe Ms. Stanley knows. Have Krista and Micah visited virtually since, we'll say, late summer?
Not that I'm aware of, Your Honor.
Okay. And
If the court will recall, the reason for the removal from the battle home, there's not a recommendation that there's a perpetrator and a victim between Krista and
Micah.
yeah. So I don't even understand why that would. I know that enough counseling and stuff hasn't happened in order for that to be pushed. So I'm very confused why Ms. McPherson's bringing it up so late.
Unless and until Counselor or Ms. Stanley or you are recommending, arguing for that, advocating for that.
No visitation at this
And
time.
it's certainly concerning that the mother or the father would want to insist on visits given that incident.
And I don't know without more that they are, but either way, I'm not going to countenance that today. I'm just going to look at the whether I'm going to order any makeup visits regarding the 10/7 in-person missed, and the virtuals that were missed, and then the in-person from 12/3. So, Ms. McPherson, do you have any problem with the department putting on a witness to address those one by one?
No, Your Honor, I'm just trying to get.
Okay, will that be Ms. Benavides?
Yes, sir. I
Okay.
cannot speak. Yes, sir.
Well, do you have any personal knowledge of those?
I do not. I was not the caseworker at the time.
Okay, so you were not the caseworker at all. Well, when did you become the caseworker? Because there are two that are Zoom visits that were apparently missed. We'll see on 1/12 and 1/16. When did you become the caseworker?
I became the caseworker, I believe, the second week of, I believe the first week of January or a little bit after.
Okay. Do you know anything about the missed virtual visits on 1/12 and 1/16?
I do. Yes, sir.
Okay.
We were all set to have a virtual visit on the 12th. I reached out to the foster parent and she was willing to have Krista ready. I reached out to Miss Favre and Mr. Battle. They were ready for the visit. And that we had some issues with Zoom. I had to set up my own Zoom account. And then I sent a new link out to all the parties. When I sent the new link out, the foster parent suddenly said that they did not want to do the visit, that they wanted to see a court order. And I don't know where they got that from, but I tried to get them to clarify, and I said, hey, here's the new link. Will you be joining? And they said, no, we will wait till Tuesday. We want to make sure the visits are court ordered. And then they just stopped communicating, which I've never had a foster parent do that before.
Okay, and you broke up, at least for me, when you said they just, and I didn't hear anything after that.
Want to see a court order, I think.
Yeah, we were all set to go for the visit. I sent a new Zoom link, and then when they were not getting on the new Zoom
Yes,
link,
I got that. Okay.
and
Yes.
then they just said, no, we'll wait till Tuesday because we want to see a court order.
What's Tuesday? The mediation?
No, sir. So this happened on the 12th, and because Monday was a holiday, They wanted me to let them know on Tuesday,
Okay.
the 16th, as to whether or not these Zoom visits were court ordered.
Okay.
And
So
they did not
it's-
allow the child to get on.
Okay. So essentially, the same reason the virtual visit on the 12th didn't happen is the same reason the visit on the 16th did not happen.
Yes, sir. I tried to schedule a makeup visit for that day, and they said they wanted to see a court order.
Okay, so to be clear for me, so I understand, was the 16th Zoom to be a makeup for the 12th Zoom?
Yes, sir.
Okay, how have the foster parents facilitated these before?
I believe they have, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Had they, since you got the case the first part of January?
No, sir. They asked me if I was facilitating, and I told them several times I would be monitoring and facilitating.
Okay, so how long were these Zoom visits to last?
An hour.
Okay, and that would involve both parents and the child's CB, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Now, whom would know about the visits prior to your taking the case? Do you
That
know?
would be the former caseworker.
And
And
that
maybe
is
Miss Stanley.
Oh, okay, that too.
Maybe, because I know the former caseworker's not here.
Or
okay.
maybe Christina Nieto. I don't know if
Okay, let me ask maybe Ms. Stanley, and Ms. Stanley has been sworn in as well. Ms. Stanley, the Zoom visits on 11/14 and 11/17, were those two visits, or was the 17th to be a makeup for the 14th?
I'm sorry, Your Honor, that I'm not sure because any of the issues with visitation didn't come up until December 29th.
I'm not aware of any back-to-back Zoom visits that are ordered like that. So I don't, it would surprise me that the parents were getting the 14th and the 17th for hours at a time, and plus in person.
All right, so you think the 17th was for the 14th?
Yes, sir.
I would assume. I don't know any CPS case where they're having virtual visits plus in
That goes
person
together.
that often. Yeah.
Okay, so Ms. Stanley, what
and
if
yes, Your Honor, that was the
Makeup.
17th was a makeup visit. So
for a 1 hour
correct.
visit, right?
Correct.
But she was still in the hospital. Is that why it didn't happen? She was still.
That's what my notes show me, that according to Ms. McPherson, that the child was in the hospital. Okay, so Ms. Stanley, Ms. Stanley, do you know anything about the 12/3 in-person visit that didn't happen?
No, sir, Your Honor.
Okay, do you know that it in fact did not happen?
I'm unaware.
Was one scheduled?
If Miss McPherson is saying that, I have no doubt that it was.
Okay, and would your answers be the same regarding the 10/7 would be
Yes,
visited in person?
correct. Yes.
Whose car broke down?
It says a caseworker's car broke down.
Okay. Okay. And Ms. Walker, if you know, do we have the caseworker? I see Ms. Nieto, the supervisor.
I don't believe so, Your Honor. I don't see.
Ms. Hollier and Ms. Stanley, do you all agree that the in-person visits on 10/7 and 12/3 were scheduled, did not happen, and should be made up?
Yes.
Yes, I have no
No.
factual support that that isn't what happened.
Okay, so it was scheduled, it didn't happen for whatever reason, but it should be made up in the best interest of Krista, yes?
Yes. Yes,
You
Your
all-
Honor.
All right, so Ms. Hollier, your client wants it. Ms. Stanley, you believe it's in Ms. Hollier's client's best interest.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And those would have been what, 1 hour or 2 hours or something else?
2 hours probably in Houston in person. And then 1 hour Zoom.
Okay. Do you have any reason to disagree with that, Ms. McPherson or Ms. Benavides?
I do not, Your Honor,
Okay.
unless,
No, sir.
Okay. So we have a trial on 2/6. You all have mediation as to just one of the children?
two.
No,
Or I thought it's,
just one. It was
Micah.
clear. It was Micah. How can we have a mediation on the other one?
I know, yeah.
So only MB, only MB.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay. And that's when?
Friday.
The Friday, this Friday.
Friday. All right. Remind me, Ms. Benavides, what's the distance between, well, what county is the foster home in?
It's in Harris County.
Harris County. And the parents reside in Hardin County?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is to all of you. Had virtual visits been occurring before November?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And they were facilitated, if not monitored or supervised by the foster parents?
No, case
No.
No,
A courtesy worker or?
the worker, Heather.
Well, and you have to remember, Your
They
Honor,
were
that-
supervised virtually.
right, but Chris CB got moved. She was placed with the battle.
Grandparents.
Right, and so they
Okay.
might have been supervised by them. I don't know.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay. So
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
Miss-
Ms. Benavides.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. The parents are in Tyler County, Texas. So they would have to get transportation. They would have to have their own transportation to get to Houston to see CB in person.
Okay.
But they're in
All right.
Hardin.
Well, let's deal with these two missed Zoom visits.
Yes,
So
sir.
you're the one you supervise, but you facilitate,
Yes, sir.
but you supervise virtually.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So you schedule it on your Zoom or the department's, and you disseminate the login information, and you're there the entire time, kind of like right now.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. I don't think I'm going to pry too much into whether there's been a change of attitude in the foster home and why the resistance, the pushback at this time. I mean, it's well, they've not intervened, correct?
No,
They have no intentions.
they don't plan to, Your Honor.
Okay. Well,
They just canceled that one visit on the 12th.
okay. So
They just kept asking to see a court order. I'm not sure where what made them ask for that.
I could explain that. But if the judge doesn't want to hear, that's fine. But there's issues behind them, and the foster parents did not withhold the child. They just were not willing to supervise the visitation because of the inappropriate content.
all right. Okay. Well, I certainly don't blame them, and they do not have to supervise. They do not have to facilitate, but they do need to make the child available
Yes, sir.
if I order it, and they're going to get their court order. But you might need to do, Ms. Benavides, some kind of alternative planning to make sure this makeup Zoom happens if they say, well, we're just not going to do it at all.
Yes, sir. That was our concern.
Hopefully not, because they'll get the court order and you'll be there to supervise. So if it becomes inappropriate, warn them, and if it persists, pull the plug.
Yes, sir.
And are we only talking about one Zoom miss? Because I haven't the 11/14.
Well, I know. I'm trying to see if
Well, I mean, the child was in the hospital, so I mean, what do you want them to do? I mean, I just don't feel like that's a nefarious reason to withhold.
well, that one's certainly excused in my mind. And it would have been perhaps, well, not go that far, but that one's excused.
Okay.
So right now we're scheduled to start the trial, or have we commenced on the merits?
Yes, we have.
Okay, so we're scheduled to resume the trial on 2/6.
Yes.
I want one 1-hour virtual visit made up before then. We also have a trial date of 2/24, right? I want the other Zoom visit made up by then. If I'm not seeing something, let me know, Ms. Hollier. Okay. Now, the in-person visits, are they 2 hours?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Somebody, I think Ms. Stanley said she thought they probably would have been
Would
given
be.
distance and so on.
Yes.
So I'm going to have one of those made up again by 2/6, and the other made up before 2/24.
Do you mean 2/20, Judge? Because 2/24 is a Saturday. So I have on my calendar that the second setting for Battle Folver is Tuesday, February 20th at 9.
Okay, thank you for.
It is.
I think you probably just meant 2024, maybe.
Well, usually that's what happens, but it is 2/24/24 right here.
I don't want to come on a Saturday.
You don't? Okay, well, let me see what it.
But I will if the court orders. I absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to test that. Okay. Well, you know what? The website has 2/24.
I'm with Bonnie. I don't want to have to come on a Saturday.
Well, and I believe we scheduled these 2 dates. We put it on the 6th to maybe get a little bit started, and then we scheduled the 20th, I think with all the attorneys involved, on the 20th at the time we recessed the trial.
Yeah, so even though it's a leap year, the 24th is a Saturday. And I'll probably be thinking about y'all, but I won't be seeing you all on the 24th. So I just don't know if we have time on the 20th. We have we only have 3 trials that day: Ferguson, Murphy, and Gassick. I think we have all day on the 6th, don't we? Let me see. No?
No, sir.
I thought the 6th was a regular docket, and we
no.
stated the 20th for the all day.
Yeah.
Before those others got put on.
I'm sorry, bear with me. Yeah, that's no way. I remember once upon a time our thinking that this is going to take more than a day or more than a half a day, certainly. Okay. Well, I'm gonna cancel the 24th. I mean, strike that. And apparently none of you all even had that. So that's good. That's good. So we'll keep it on 2/6 and 2/20 right now.
Okay.
So what I said, Ms. Benavidez, what I said earlier about having that second virtual makeup before the 24th and the second in-person made up before the 24th, JK, I mean the 20th.
Before the 20th. Okay, yes, sir.
So Judge, I didn't hear, I heard you say that your makeup for 1 hour virtual before the 2/6 and then a second 1 hour virtual before 2:20. I didn't hear any in person.
Yeah, I'm sorry. My connection is unstable right now. So when I said earlier,
yeah, I'm not opposed to it. I just didn't hear you say it.
right. And gosh, I can tell I'm really glitching. But when I said earlier that I want the second virtual makeup and the second in-person makeup before February 24th, forget that. It's before the 20th instead of before the 24th. Okay. So one virtual and one 1 hour virtual, 1 2 hour in-person makeup before 2/6, and then the second virtual 1 hour makeup and the second in-person makeup before 2:20.
And Your Honor, I did confirm my client said it is 2 hour in-person visits.
Okay. Now, somebody needs to distill this, draft this into an order so that we might present it to whomever needs it.
I think Ms. McPherson should.
I knew she was going to volunteer me.
She has the hearing. Or Ms. Walker.
Ms. Walker?
I know, she's like,
If
There you
my
go.
vote counts, I vote Miss McPherson.
You seconded the motion?
We're ganging up on you, Michelle.
Your Honor, I will draft it. It probably won't be all pretty and everything, but it should do the job.
I thought you were drafting as I was speaking.
I wish I was, Your Honor.
Yeah. Okay, Ms. Stanley, are you okay with all of this? If not, tell me where and why not.
Oh, I am fine with every visit that the parents and the child want to have. And I know that the caseworker will have a better handle on what's going on in this case than the last.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well,
You.
I think Ms. Benavides, how many times have you appeared with us?
For this case, sir?
No, total. This is the second or third?
I believe so, yes, sir.
Okay,
I've
well,
worked with her in Orange.
okay. Oh, okay. But I've known her each of the 2 or 3 times
Yes.
last week, I think, to be very much on top of everything.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So that gives us all a nice comfort level.
Thank you.
And the diligence and professionalism. So,
Yes, sir.
okay. So can you all, I'm going to leave it to you all to pick the dates and times.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So do we need to do anything else? The court will.
Your Honor, I just wanted to, it's not on there, but I believe that there could be some background checks and pending home studies for Krista. And you're looking into that as well, Ms. Benavides?
I am, yes, ma'am. We're currently starting the paperwork on Justin and Patricia McCormick.
And that's the names that the mother provided?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Ms. Benavides, if you need anything expedited, though I'm not sure that word means a whole lot, just Ms. Walker and Ms. Siegel will let me know.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, anything else from anyone else? Okay, the mother, again, the court notes the mother and Mr. Battle are present. Okay.
No, sir, other than the fact that it's 2 separate people. They're not a couple. One is my aunt and one is a distant friend.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
With the same last name.
No, they're not the same last name. It's Patricia Morrow and Justin McCormick.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Are you saying Monroe
Yes, sir.
or Monroe?
I
Okay.
thought she said Morrow. She's saying Monroe.
Is it
Monroe.
Monroe or Morrow?
Okay,
It's
we
Morrow.
also-
Marrow.
Oh,
Ms. Benavides, you have that though somewhere.
I do, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Anything else from anyone else?
No, sir, not that I can think of.
Ms. Walker, anything? Okay. So Ms. McPherson, I'll keep an eye out for the order. Get everyone's signatures before sending it to Ms. Wallingford.
Yes, Your Honor, I will.
Obviously, and get it before the first visit, or the first the first virtual visit at least. So, okay, well, wow, what happened? I'm getting done 2 hours before I thought I would.
Oh, gosh.
Okay.
I thought I'd get brownie points for having us all go in the conference
No,
room.
it feels longer.
I know. Yeah, let's don't talk about feels like.
So there you go.
I think I got a removal waiting for me. Not in this county though. So, all right. Thank you all very much, Mom and Dad. Remember that if at the end of this case you're not willing and able to provide a safe environment for your children, parental rights may be further restricted or even terminated permanently. So keep visiting, keep working your services, keep demonstrating. All right. Okay.
Yes,
thank
sir.
you all. Thank you one
Thank
and
you.
all very much. Take care, and we'll see some of you tomorrow
Yes, sir. Thank you.
in person.
Thank you.